how can you speak to all of us in an intelligent, sensible way, and yet you go to a football stadium, it's, kill the Boers. And Julius said, I play to the audience. And the EFF's just the crazy guys. They're gone. From my perspective, they are not relevant anymore.
You reckon they can't come back from this?
No. The army is pathetically weak. The police are a joke. The real strength militarily are...
Guys, really, there's a lot that is really being unpacked by Rob Hersov. And he has actually come back on the scene, especially in the international scene, really speaking and really shouting out loud, about the situation in South Africa, and really sensitizing the world to come to the aid of South Africa. And there are many things he actually shares which are really, even me personally, it's really difficult to really understand. First of all, he argues that he actually, the way he met Malema, I think he hosted Malema in London at some point, and that Malema is a really highly intelligent person, but then he actually plays with people's emotions. He actually exposes some things which I really like you guys to hear about by yourself, about Malema, in his fight for black people and the black middle class, you see. But he actually thinks that whole thing is actually kind of like playing with people's emotions, so to speak. I really don't know how to really believe that, because with the popularity of Malema, in the wider Africa, outside of South Africa, hearing this wouldn't really I think it's something that I'll just allow you guys to hear for yourself. But let's quickly listen to Rob Hersov as he actually argues on how he personally can actually turn the economy of South Africa around in 12 months, according to his ideas and his logic in trying to really save the economy of South Africa, and how he thinks that the ANC is not really interested in economic growth, but then the ANC and then the fact that South Africa's middle class, in terms of South Africa's police now, Rob Hersov argues that the middle class citizens in South Africa are much more equipped and well trained in policing than South Africa's police force.
MK and the EFF.
Yeah.
You've obviously come out swinging quite strongly against them. Have you met? I know you've met Malema.
I met Julius.
You met Julius in London, right?
I hosted his first ever lunch in London.
Yeah, I think
and
I
there's
was
this
in Oxford
photograph of Lord Robin Rennick, who died a month ago.
Yeah.
My dad, me, and Julius Malema.
Yes, yeah.
We were just having lunch.
Yeah.
And there were 20 other people there. And that picture's been flying around. Paulie van Wyk, when I first moved back to South Africa, journalist for Daily Maverick,
yes, yeah,
comes up to me and says, I'm doing an article on you funding the EFF. I went, where do you get this from? She said, this photograph. I said, so you extrapolate a lunch photograph to me funding the EFF. I mean, come on. Too proper work.
Yeah. So you didn't.
So I met Julius, and he was very impressive. He's highly intelligent. He plays to the audience. I tried to get him to put his red cap on for a photograph. He said no. He knew this was London, the city of London. These are the big beasts of the financial sector. And he was going to do the right thing. And my father, after 20 minutes of Julius speaking, people were nodding their heads. Because 90% of what he says you can actually agree with. The rest is the Looney Tunes. And my father put his hand up and he said, Julius, how can you speak to all of us in an intelligent, sensible way, and yet you go to a football stadium, it's, kill the Boers. And Julius said, I play to the audience. Straight like that.
Wow.
So I think he's going to have a hard time remaining relevant. He's lost his top lieutenants.
Yeah.
And the EFF's just the crazy guys. They're gone. From my perspective, they are not relevant anymore.
You reckon they can't come back from this?
No.
And Zuma, did you ever have any dealings with him?
I spoke to him on the phone, and he was as charming as I was told he would be. Couldn't have been nicer.
Yeah.
And I know why he's so popular. He's a charming, popular guy. But, there's Father Christmas, jolly man handing out presents. That is Jacob Zuma. The disastrous president. Terrible that he was even in power for this country. But people liked him. So I think when he goes, MK is going to have a hard time finding who the real leader is and keeping its direction. Are they a Marxist, Leninist, populist? What are they? I don't think they've worked it out yet.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I think the ANC is also still working it out.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. And the GNU, for that matter.
Maybe even
true.
the DA. So on the RET, here's another perspective, and I'd be interested in what you would think about this. Either South Africa needs, well, let me start here. Something needs to change, for sure,
yes.
Right? And I think maybe part of the problem with where we are right now, at least from my perspective, is the ANC keeps trying to do the same thing and call it something different.
Correct.
And what we really need, in my view, is a decisive government. One that says, we're doing this, you're not going to like it.
Or a crisis.
Sure.
That forces the decisive
Quite
government.
frankly,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So that out of that crisis, we
Yeah.
can be reborn.
Yeah.
You know. And would an RET, MK, EFF government really be such a bad thing, to the extent that either, you know, the ANC would really go to the left and implement left policies, and then we'd get to see what they look like. And if they work, they work, and if they don't,
They don't work.
Yeah, sure.
They don't work.
Sure. we'd have a crisis. Or South Africa really needs to go to the right and actually just do the thing properly, you know, and have a proper free market economy. And again, if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, and we have a crisis, then we do. Isn't that what we need? And therefore, this
Absolutely
the
right.
boogeyman of the RET government, I understand why certain people are worried about it, but I would prefer if the government wasn't this middle muddle fiddle fuddle, to quote
Me too.
Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Me too.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
We're sort of becoming Argentina. 50 years of socialism destroyed their economy, destroyed everything, and Malay just came in with his hacksaw.
Yeah.
But do we really want to go through another 10, 20 years of underperforming in every sector, destroying what's left of the state-owned enterprises, just breaking and stealing?
Sure.
Maybe I'm in your camp. We need a revolution or a crisis or something that precipitates.
Yeah.
This is where we got to go.
Absolutely.
But you know, I don't think there'll ever be a coup d'etat in this country.
Why?
The army is pathetically weak. The police are a joke. The real strength militarily are private security companies.
Yeah, absolutely.
And middle-class people that have guns and know how to use them.
That's actually where military power lies.
Correct.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's very senior in the firearms side of the police.
Okay.
He said that the police only have budget for the police to go to the training range once a year and shoot at a fixed target. Whereas the middle-class South Africans who have guns are very well trained, have very good ammunition and weapons and know how to use them, whereas the police don't. So I don't think there'll ever be a coup d'etat. And who would do it anyway? I don't think it's the EFF. They're only in Mpumalanga. You know, in KZN, the Zulus, I'm saying the Zulus generically, whoever was behind the riots gave it a crack and failed. You know, there's no dominant and universal across South Africa group that could create that crisis with some sort of coup.
Yeah, and so we're probably just going to...
You know, if there's a coup in KZN, people in the Cape, look, what the hell are they doing? You know, they just look with... So I think that's a good thing in some ways. But how are we going to get to the crisis you and I want?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah.
And if we have a collapse, an economic collapse, say the rand goes to 100 to the dollar.
Sure.
I mean, that would be a complete collapse.
10-year bond yields up
Exactly.
above 20, so.
That would create a huge, that would create an economic collapse. Would it be enough to force people onto the streets? Because the wealthy, the taxpayers just leave the country. They just get up and leave, which they're doing in droves.
Yeah.
It really upsets me, you know, when I'm driving around and people are begging on the streets. It shouldn't be like that. I know it's way worse elsewhere in the poorer areas of South Africa, and I don't really drive around there. But I mean, it just shouldn't be like that. It's just not fair. I could, in 12 months, deliver 5% economic growth in this country. Easily.
What would you do?
Sell all the state-owned enterprises as quickly as possible, deregulate like crazy, kick the unions to touch. I would make South Africa investable again. Make South Africa? No, there's no acronym there.
Well, I was going to say...
And it's very easy to do.
Yeah.
If you go to the IRR, Institute of Race Relations, the Free Market Foundation, David Ansara, they've written down all the ways to easily turn this country around. Hans Ottling, a Swedish friend, and I wrote an open letter to Cyril and the government on how to fix this country and create economic growth.
Okay.
And I sent it to a few people, Moletsi and Becky and Musi Mamani, to read.
Yeah.
And Musi called me back and said, brilliant letter, 100% correct. I wouldn't bother. I said, why not? He said, they're not even going to read it. They don't care. Meaning Cyril and the cabinet of those. They don't care.
No response.
No, they don't care. They actually don't care about economic growth.
Yeah.
And the US State Department asked to meet me. And the senior member of the State Department asked me a question. We had a chat. It was more friendly than anything else.
Sure.
Don't worry, I'm not CIA.
Yeah. Neither am I. Don't worry.
I'm South Africa first. And he asked me a question. He said, when it comes to AGOA and the fisheries agreement, it just seems like they can't get the act together to fill out the forms. Do you think, Rob, it's malevolence or incompetence?
Sure.
It's such a good question. Malevolence or incompetence?
Yeah.
And I think it's mainly incompetence. But the RET-NDR is malevolence.
But he also speaks about how, the weakness of South Africa's police. South Africa is actually plagued with 82 murders a day, thereabout. Really terrible gender-based violence. Last year, I think there were two guys at the same time who actually just woke up. I think for some reason they were angered by their wives or their girlfriends and just shot them, killed, their wife, these partners, killed themselves, and so to speak. So that whole gender-based violence, there was even actually the case in a colored community. I think her name was... I don't remember anyway, but now the police officer actually shot her, because of some arguments and all. So gender-based violence is there. There's a lot of gang violence as well, robberies and all that. And to have a weak police in such a state is really not something that really should be condoned, especially the lives of those people. That's why a lot of people are fleeing South Africa in droves. And the people who actually remain, especially the majority of the blacks, really don't even have enough money to kind of like process visas, so to speak, because that's not even an area to go, because most of the people, the majority, have been kind of like dumbed down to really to have a dependency mindset. This whole problem with this whole thing with SASSA, 350 rand, which when I convert it to the currency, I really understand 17 euros or probably about $15 there, about monthly. And this is sort of like what the ANC really boasts of, that they've actually been able to support. I don't actually discriminate against the support to the helpless, but to really brag about the fact that people earn or get support from the government in this way without really bragging for the jobs that have been created to empower the people and really bring up their dignity, I really don't know. So anyway, Rob Hersov is actually saying that, in this whole circumstance South Africa has found itself, South Africa is really dealing with a really weak police, which sometimes he even calls a joke. All right. And he actually then argues that, the ANC has actually continued, so to speak, the worst legacy of apartheid. Apartheid had a worst legacy, terrible legacy. The world actually came to a standstill to boycott South Africa during the apartheid regime. There were sanctions on the economy, and that's how apartheid slowly started coming to an end by 1994. But Rob Hersov is actually arguing that the ANC actually, in a way, has continued with that legacy, that terrible legacy of apartheid, and that it doesn't really care about economic growth with the unemployment rate of 33.3% and all of that. Rob Hersov thinks that the ANC doesn't care about economic growth. Then one could really ask, what then really is the ANC concerned about? The likes of Julius Malema would also then reply that the only investment that is in South Africa is investment in corruption. And so this is actually kind of like the whole bounce off that I'm hearing from all of these politicians the more I study South Africa. And share your thoughts in the comments.